Our gospel reading comes from John chapter 10, verses 1 to 10. Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers." Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." 5 summers ago, I rode my bike with 8 other people from Seattle to New York City, and we passed through Montana. When we were riding from White Sulphur Springs to Harleton, we came around a bend in the road and saw in the distance some sort of large white obstacle covering the road ahead. We couldn't figure out what it was until a car passed us that had just gone through the obstacle. And a young boy yelled out the back window, "It's sheep!" Hundreds and hundreds of sheep in the middle of the road moving towards us. We stopped a little bit before the moving herd of sheep and stood in awe of the sight, something I had never seen back home in the suburbs of Chicago. It was something none of us had ever seen before, and we were both amazed and a bit afraid. We stood paralyzed as we tried to figure out how on earth we were going to ride our bikes through this slowly moving Montana traffic jam. One of the shepherds who was riding a 4-wheel ATV noticed our plight and came over to us. The shepherd informed us that sheep are the dumbest creatures on the face of the earth. He sort of rolled his eyes as he said this. And I'm not sure if this statement was supposed to make us feel better about the situation, but it was something that I had begun to take note of. I'd watched the sheep repeatedly straying off the road, only to be repeatedly herded back into moving forward by the dogs and the shepherds. The shepherd then motioned for us to follow him. The sheep parted like the Red Sea as he drove his ATV through the herd, and we followed close behind him until our little group of bikes made it all the way through to the back of the herd. And then we simply continued on our way. Once we made it through, we laughed throughout the rest of the day and the rest of the trip, really, at the absurdity of what we had just experienced. 2 things have stuck with me in this experience with sheep, really the only experience with sheep I have had. The first thing is the statement that the shepherd made about sheep being the dumbest creatures on the face of the earth. I do feel a bit insulted that Jesus often called us his sheep. It's humbling to know that it's not completely inaccurate. But the second thing that has stuck with me from my experience with these sheep is watching the shepherds and all that they did to care for those sheep. The shepherds showed the sheep where to go and what to do by setting the example of going first down the road. The shepherds also protected the sheep from dangers to the side and from the back. And the shepherds were always with the sheep. They never gave up on them or abandoned them, even when they were slow, and they went off course again and again and again. The shepherds were patient with the sheep, and their care extended to each and every sheep. In the verses that follow the passage that we heard today from John's Gospel, Jesus clearly refers to himself as the shepherd, the good shepherd. But in the passage that is assigned for today, Jesus only alludes to being the shepherd himself. and rather says directly that he is the gate to enter the sheepfold. It's honestly confusing to try to determine if Jesus is or can be both the gate and the shepherd, which is probably why the disciples didn't understand what Jesus was saying. Whether Jesus is both the gate or the shepherd, it's an imperative role in the protection and well-being of the sheep. The shepherd and the gate protect the sheep from danger. They are ever present and help the sheep know where to go and where not to go. Despite the fact that sheep are the dumbest creatures on the face of the earth, those sheep that my biking group near Harleton eventually got to where they were going because the shepherds had such skill and care. And even though we humans and followers of Jesus aren't always the smartest or the most faithful, we have an amazing shepherd and a sturdy gate that helps protect us and make sure that we go where and do what we are supposed to. When the text study group that meets on Tuesdays was discussing this passage this week, we started to wonder who the gatekeeper is in this figure of speech that Jesus used. All the other characters in this figure of speech seem pretty clear. Yes, it is still a bit confusing that Jesus is maybe both the gate and the shepherd, but at least we could make that connection. We, of course, are the sheep, and we could think of a number of present-day examples of who the thief and bandit are. Really anyone or anything that steals, kills, or destroys. But who is the gatekeeper? The passage doesn't really give us any clues other than to say that the gatekeeper is the one who opens the gate to let the shepherd in. The gatekeeper seems to be some kind of holy bouncer who lets Jesus, the shepherd, in, but doesn't allow the thief or bandits in. One person in our group started wondering if maybe the gatekeeper is the individual in our life who helped us to know Jesus, the person who nourished and helped our faith in Jesus to grow and mature. We talked about some of the saints in our lives and in this church who are an integral part of our faith, faithful and devoted people who we remember with such love. But then as we continue to talk about who the gatekeeper might be, the group realized that we, those of us who already know Jesus, those of us who already have faith in Jesus, are now the gatekeepers. We are the ones who already know Jesus' voice, and we can open the gate for Jesus to come into the pasture, for other people to come and know the voice of Jesus and to follow him. Because of the gatekeepers in our own lives, all of us here today have been transformed by the voice and love and protection of Jesus. We know Jesus' voice and we follow him. And our lives are remarkably different because of this. And now we have become the gatekeepers. So how do we be good gatekeepers? How do we swing wide open the gate in our individual lives and as a church so that the shepherd can get in to be with all the sheep? We can show love through our actions and through the way we express what we believe and think. As a gatekeeper, we have to be vigilant to make sure that we ourselves aren't swayed by the bandits and thieves of today. It can be difficult to remain objective when the false prophets today are so deceptive and so abundant. We must drown out these voices that come only to steal, kill, and destroy, and instead be gatekeepers that only allow through the one who comes so that all people may have abundant life. As a church, we can consider what we might do to really swing the gate wide open to welcome people when they arrive here at our church. But we should also consider what it might look like to go to where people already are and help them to know Jesus right there. All of us gathered here today as part of this church have different gifts, beautiful and wonderful gifts that God has given us to swing wide open the gate so that all people in the community of Livingston can hear the voice of Jesus and follow it. The hard part has been and will continue to be to discern how we are to utilize these gifts. And the even harder part is to have the courage and audacity to use them. We are the ones who will open up the gate for all people to know the voice of Jesus and to know his care and love. We are the signs of resurrection. And so if we are indeed the gatekeepers, then we have a very important and high stakes job. It's a lot of opportunity and a lot of responsibility to ensure that all people can hear the voice of the shepherd, the voice of Jesus. It feels overwhelming and scary. But I want to draw our attention back to the shepherd and to the gate. It was the shepherd that transformed our own lives, and ultimately it will be Jesus, the shepherd, who transforms other people's lives. It is his voice that ultimately matters. We have the shepherd who will continue to protect us, to guide us, and to lead us forward. Thanks be to God. Amen.